you so much for coming out tonight to have our mayor debate. We are going to start off with 5 minutes each for the candidates to introduce themselves and tell a little bit about their backgrounds. And then from there, we'll have our questions. Each will get 2 minutes to respond to the questions and 30-second rebuttal, should that be required. And we'll switch the people we start with as we go through our questions. All right, so we'll start with Linda.
Hello, and thank you for having me here, and welcome to my fellow candidates. And I'm sure there you are. My name is Joy Sullivan, and I am proud to be running as a candidate for the mayor of Newport City. I have been in local government as well as a legislator for the Bennington-Rutland district. I come originally from Manhattan, and I've lived in the state of Vermont for almost 12, 13 years now. I was in local government. I was on the Board of Authorities, an overseer of voters as well as the tax appeals. I am an advocate for victims of human trafficking. I've done that for many, many years, internationally and domestically. I am on many, many boards, and I am a commissioner of the state Vermont Housing Authority. I was appointed by the current governor to that. I am very involved in the state of Vermont. Ever since I was a young lady, I have always been interested in doing pro bono work, and I am very interested in running for the mayor position now because I do like to give back. I am a certified public accountant. I have been doing that for many years. I focus mainly on receiverships and forensic work. I do litigation support. I go into companies. I'm a turnaround specialist, so I fix situations. I go into international and domestic companies. I am the court-appointed receiver currently for the coffee cup matter. I handle the estates, and I'm proud to say that we are finally dispersing back to the creditors their first distribution, and hopefully we'll be giving them another distribution. We're just waiting on some court orders to pay back those creditors who've been waiting a really long time for some money. I was the former court-appointed receiver on the Rutland Fire District and helped all of those people get their monies back and get their land situation done as well. So I'm a business person. I work with fixing governments, and I work with helping people. I have worked all of my life, ever since I was a young child. So I worked for my degrees. I'm a former English teacher. When I was pregnant, I worked in the most difficult district teaching English at night so that I could be a stay-at-home mom. I worked as a candy striper when I was a young girl. I went and piled books in the library at night so that I could go to school. I went and did everything I possibly could to go to school at night so that I could earn my degrees. I didn't just say, okay, here I am going to school. I worked. I'm a dancer, I was a performer, I'm a choreographer, and I was fortunate to have become successful in what I tried to do. And I'm proud I worked. But every time I earned something, I gave back to the community. I like to give back to the community. I truly believe that when we earn, we should give back. I'm currently on a board of professional responsibility that oversees attorneys. So if there's wrongdoing, we watch to make sure that they are given certain assignments to make sure that they do the right thing. I was formerly on a licensed board of a practice where if attorneys did something wrong, we watched to see that they had to go and do maybe CBE or give them assignments.
You have 30 seconds.
Okay, so when I came in here, I knew who I was voting for, and I'm hoping at the end of this, I still believe who I should vote for, and I'm hoping that you will stay with me and that you will want to vote for me as well. I know that it's really courageous to have to come out here and put yourself out there and vote. I'm new to Newport, but I know Newport. I was up in the legislature for 6 years, and Newport
Time's
issues
up.
passed me. So I pass it on.
All right, Rod.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm so glad to be here. My name's Roderick Owens. I am originally from a town called Columbus, Georgia, about 100 miles south of Atlanta, near Fort Benning, Georgia. I am a son of a military brat, so I moved around a lot growing up. I came to Vermont in 1992 at the ripe age of 18 to start my college career at the University of Vermont. I am a graduate of the University of Vermont, and I have been in Vermont for 31 years. So my entire adult life has been in Vermont, and I've spent the last 12 years in the Northeast Kingdom. So I can back up, back in college days, I was an English business double major, had a strong passion for marketing and outreach and public speaking and all those things. And when I graduated, I had a dual major, but primarily English major, business minor, and also got certified to teach high school English and business. But right after that, I went into the actual corporate world. Wasn't quite ready to be a teacher. Spent my first 15, 20 years in marketing, owned several different companies in Burlington, spent the first 20 years in Chittenden County. Really enjoyed that time, fell in love, had a daughter. My daughter's 24 years old now. When she was about 4 months old, I ended up being a single parent. So I was a single parent for my daughter her entire, young life. And now she's 24. We'll bring her up later on. But throughout my time in Vermont, I've had an opportunity to do wonderful things, whether it was promoting resorts or vacation properties, as well as being a full-fledged marketing, consultant and helping businesses, grow their business, get more sales, things like that. And I had a lot of success as in my 20s and 30s as I developed as a businessman and as a father and, as a community person. Around actually about 2012, the first time I was in this room, and believe it or not, it was for a presentation on the EB5 project. So imagine how far we've come since then. And that's probably the first time I put community organizer on my name tag, because I saw things that were happening and developing, and I said, I definitely want to be a part of the growth and success that's, coming towards Newport. Unfortunately, we know what happened, and here we are, and I'm glad to be back in this building. Throughout my 31 years, like I said, in Vermont, I was part of our projects, been in community service since I was 18, and now I'm happy to say that I'm a teacher. I am a public school teacher, the teacher at Barton Academy in graded school. I'm a middle school teacher. That's what I do every day, working with about 50, 6th, 7th, 8th graders. Every day, they consistently get to see Mr. Owens' bright, shiny face, and we all know it's English, right? Nobody enjoys getting to it, but I do my best to make it fun and energetic, and I love being in front of my students to show them, that you can have multiple talents, and here we can communicate and, move forward. And that brings me to the natural progression of I'm the Orleans County Democratic Chair, so I'm the chair of the Orleans County Democrats. That job entails working with all the towns in Orleans County to, lift voices of the Democratic Party and, start to get ready for the 2024 election. But that has nothing to do with my position of running for mayor. I am here because, I like Linda Joy, definitely want to appreciate giving back. I definitely put my money in my mouth, my money where my mouth is, my time, my life, I put it right out there. I'm one of those people that are very authentic for, every day. And my goal, if elected mayor, is to move Newport forward and to move Newport forward in a way that's inclusive and brings everybody to the table. I mean, we could talk about all of my wonderful accolades and the things that I've accomplished. Trust me, they're litany. But the facts
30
are,
seconds.
I'm here to push Newport forward. And Newport is, no matter what happens, we're all Newport City residents, and the goal is that everybody should feel comfortable if they have a voice in Newport, and that the goal of the mayor and the goal of the city council is to help, the Newport City residents, ideally live the best life they can, and they should know and feel comfortable that we're working very hard every day to do our best for them.
Time's up.
Thank you.
Carl.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. My name is Carl King. I originally I was born in Rhode Island. I moved up here when I was 19 years old. I joined the Vermont National Guard here in Newport. I was there for 2 years, and I went active duty, and I was on for 2 years. I came back here. I farmed. I had a roofing company. I fell off a roof. And I kind of had that career. I kind of had a little walk. I had a fixed here recently. It really slowed my pace down. So I really got to absorb really the flavor and the customs of Newport. I've been here almost 32 years now in Newport, in the community, actively doing charitable organizations. I'm a member of a lot of organizations. I'm certainly here to promote what I can do for Newport. And I'm not going to bore you with a list of accolades I've done. My walk and talk should both be equal, and I believe the public has seen that walk, and you've certainly heard my talk before. I'm about Newport. I believe the position should be neutral. about everybody, which is inclusive. I think all voices should be heard. I believe we should have stability in our council and also stability within our community. We need ability to talk amongst ourselves, figure things out, and how to approach our council. But also the council needs to speak, listen, and that's one of the things I do. I listen to people. That's how you learn. I've been here long enough. I know flavor. I know what Newport wants. I know what they don't want. I know what they need, and I certainly know what they don't need. We don't need people coming here with an agenda, being fed by 6 people, thinking they know Newport and everything about Newport, and that's just not how it works. Don't stand on Main Street, Newport, and do a 360 and tell me now all of a sudden know everything about Newport. It's much more than that. It's much more deeper than that. There's customs, there's roots, there's stories. I can ask questions that you guys would never know anything about, and that's the flavor that I bring to Newport. That we're taking care of ourselves. That we're locals. Not that we're afraid to have new people come in, new ideas, but sometimes we just need to be at our own pace. Not that we don't need to go to the future or anything, but we certainly don't need new people coming in and telling us this, that, and the other thing without really knowing us. Again, the Newport's much deeper. I've been here, I've been rooted. I just pretty much know the voice of Newport. So I pledge that I will do the best I can in that position. I will be fair, equal. I'll be honesty, integrity, change and results. That's all I ask. Give me a chance to spread my wings and show what I can do. I've been fighting long and hard enough for this, and I believe it's truly my time, and I've got enough time vested in this community that I think I deserve a chance. Thank you.
1 second, I'm going to reset timer. So for each question, we will get 2 minutes to respond to the question, and then if there's any rebuttals based on that, we will go through that for 30 seconds. 2 minutes. All right, so the first question I have for you folks is, what is the job of the Newport City Mayor as you understand it, and how we fulfill that duty? And this time we'll start with Rod.
Ready?
Yep.
I believe, the job of the Newport City Mayor is to fulfill a role on City Council, first and foremost, to be the 5th member of the City Council. I understand that the mayor does not technically have a vote on the City Council, and it only used in the position of a tiebreaker. So, that being said, the overall goal of the mayor, first and foremost, could be ceremonial, some would think, but I think their primary job is to work as a liaison between the public and the council, and to bring ideas and things the public brings to them to the council, and to make sure that that is heard by the council, and to do their very best that when presenting the views to the other members of the council, that they're speaking on behalf of the public and not just themselves. I also think that's important for them to set the agendas and to get feedback, and if something hasn't been working, like like the decision to move from the Memorial Bill down to here, it's a nice change that came about, and that's a growth thing that happens because of what was happening at the city council members. At the city council meetings. But mostly I think it's important for, the city council, along with the mayor, is to counsel the public of Newport, the Newport City residents, and to be level-headed, to be even-keeled, and to respect, our constituents, and to do our best to make sure they're heard, and to apparently, my goal is to, create a community that we all feel a part of and that we all feel a vested interest in.
All right. Carl.
The role of the mayor, in conjunction with city council, but quite frankly, is a team. They're to run, give them the power to run and look at the things that make the city run. And we give them that power. And with that comes great responsibility. The mayor, with permission with the city council, should be spearhead going out looking for developers, business people to come to our city. That's kind of what that position kind of is befitting. While others do their part of the efforts to bring business and development here, the mayor should be the voice. But at the same time, to bring the balance to the council with a vote, but also to be out with people. The mayor should be doing a medley of things, medley groups. Shouldn't just pick one or two. The position, requires you to be out there for everybody, straight on down the line. But most generally, mayors would be out promoting, selling Newport, but also doing the ceremonial part as well. But also the spearhead of the team. That's it.
30 seconds. You'll set.
That's it.
Okay. Linda.
I believe that the mayor is the ambassador of the council, the member of the council, who actually listens to the will of the people of Newport, who takes that will and brings that voice back to council members, who then, along with the fellow council members, takes that will and puts together a policy that represents the will along with those council members. Then you have your town manager who enforces that policy, which represents the will. The ambassador council member, who is the mayor, goes out and speaks to the people. Hopefully the ambassador, the mayor, who has the authority vested from the council, is a person who will go out and be the representative voice, who speaks with the legislators, if necessary, goes up to the legislature, and is the representative who does testimony, who is the person who, with the authority vested, and after discussion with the council members, goes out and speaks with any of the business people necessary, brings back the discussions, and talks with the council people. So you are the ambassador. You are there as the ceremonial ambassador. You are there to be the voice and the representative of your council members. You are there as the tie maker or tie breaker. However, it is very important that you listen to the will of the people. It is very important that you don't run amok. And it's very important that you listen. And again, I say this, it's the will of the people that the council members and the ambassador, who is the mayor, put the policy together that represents the will of the people.
All right, so next question is, how would you work with city council and the interim city manager to establish that good working relationship that's needed? And this will be Carl to start with.
I would first off certainly want to know what my role is, learn from past council members, past mayors. There's certainly advice there and wisdom, but also in our charter, everything's there. But to further answer that, you got to have good compatibility to want to work with somebody, a team. We're not always going to get along, but as long as we bring a non-agenda forum as we're sitting down, and it's all about Newport, we should move Newport forward. We shouldn't be fighting about other things. It shouldn't be personal. The city manager, certainly everything that the council decides upon, again, the city manager enforces. But it's a team. We've got to develop the plans, figure out what's best for the city of Newport, not for anybody's personal agenda. It's all about Newport. If you don't come to the table with that, you don't belong at the table. Thank you.
All right, Linda.
When you're working with team members, I mean, we're civilized human beings. The whole idea is to discuss matters, to discuss issues. You're there with guidelines, you're there with rules, you're there with processes. You have discussions. You sit down, you may not agree on all the issues. You sit there and you actually have discussions. So you're going to look at the elements, you're going to look at the issues, and you'll flesh them out. Sometimes it will be a long day and a long evening, and sometimes it will be a short day and a short evening. You're just going to have to sit there and you're going to understand that we're civilized men, and we're going to take our time and we're going to work together as human beings. That's how members of a council work. You become one. You become fellow members. That's what's expected. Sometimes it will be more difficult, sometimes it will be easier. So how do you do that? You take your role responsibly, you become accountable, you're accountable to our citizens and to our residents. And hopefully, every single person who is elected is going to be a responsible citizen. Otherwise, you should not run. And I don't think that it's worth belaboring that point.
30 seconds.
So,
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. How would you work with the city council and the interim city manager and establish a good working relationship with them?
Okay, well, the first thing I do would be definitely introduce myself to them and make sure that they knew that I was available if they wanted to spend more time and to get to know me, in my new role as mayor. Then I would, participate in the trainings that League of Cities offered to make sure that I was up to speed in my position of mayor and make sure I knew parliamentary procedure, Robert's rules, and all the necessary facets, to be the best mayor I could be. So that would be my goal, is to, be a better mayor the next day than I was the day before. And that means establishing relationships and rapport and a part of, the situation and spending time with the council members to learn what is urgent and important to them, as well as the kind of thing that we've had on the plate that we've been working toward as far as strategic planning and things like that. So I would definitely roll my sleeves, get involved, and see myself as one of the 5 council members. Titles are titles. I mean, the council president is just as important as city mayor in those sessions, and I would do my best to show respect and show, humility as I learned, got into the job. But that being said, I would approach it with vigor and enthusiasm, and I would try to be the first person at the meeting and the last person leaving the meeting, and make sure that if anybody knew that you had something else left unsaid or something that they wanted to continue talking about, we could figure out a way to do it without violating open meeting law, and then be having solid conversations that show that we're not just there on meeting days, and we are working toward listening and hearing all the concerns and responding all the concerns of the constituents of Newport City.
All right. So the next question is, what is your primary goal as mayor? How, given the structure of the mayor position in Newport City is, how would you accomplish that goal? And this time we will start with Linda.
My primary goal is to be successful at being the mayor and make sure that we have a successful council that actually gets along and pays attention to what the people of the city want, and that we answer appropriately the questions that are asked. That if we don't know the answers, we research them, and we come back and we find the answers, and we look again if we can't find the answers. And if we still can't find the answers, we look again, and I am sure we will be able to find the answers, because if the questions are there, the answers are there. That we work together and that we make sure that Newport thrives. I really believe that our priorities are to work with Newport and figure out what Newport needs. I don't believe that the council members as of today don't know what Newport needs. You elected them. Right now, there's an opening, and it's for a mayor. And as the mayor, my priority would be to participate with the council and figure out what we need to do to help Newport move forward.
All right. And Rod?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to know that I've been considering running for mayor for more than a year. I've watched, Mayor Net in over the last 4, 5, 6 years, and how he proceeded as that role of mayor, and I knew that the transition was coming. But I've literally considered running for mayor for longer than some of the other candidates have been in town. But that being said, I ran in March, and I did come in second. Everyone wants to say that it was a landslide. No, it wasn't a landslide. Mayor Barnes got 230 votes. I got 154 votes. And those people that voted for me, even in March, knew that I was going to be a new voice in Newport, and they knew that I was going to bring an energy and an enthusiasm. So my first primary goal is to continue that work that I started back then, establish relationships and making sure that everybody felt welcome and all felt like their voice were heard, no matter whose voice it was, because there's a lot of other issues besides, rates and things like that, as far as we have housing, we have education needs, we have so many needs. We need to bring more, energy to downtown Newport. We need to grow traffic, and I'm very much pro-business, but those are all, mid-range, long-term goals, 2, 3, 4, 5-year plans.
30 seconds.
Because the first goal is just to make sure that everybody feels comfortable and that we feel confident to know that the people representing you have your best interests in mind. I mean, the facts are, I was speaking with one of my supporters, and he goes, I know no matter what, you're going to make the city of Newport look bad, and I will never do that.
All right, Carl.
Can you state the question again,
Yes.
please?
What is your primary goal as mayor? And given how the structure of the mayor position in Newport City is, how would you accomplish that goal?
Well, certainly my priority as mayor would certainly be to develop a cohesiveness with the council and the community. For without that, we're never going to move forward together. If you have factions, there's always going to be a battle. One's going to want to be better, stronger, smarter than the other, and it's always going to be a perpetual battle. And until we come together and meld together and become one, then we're going to be a very strong, formidable, excuse me, first, to bring Newport into a prosperous future. So certainly that's going to be concentrated on. And then the community's got to have a comfortability built back up and believing in our leadership. So I bring again that honor and integrity that people are looking for. I'm certainly not here trying to fluff, and I certainly don't bullshit anybody. It's about Newport. I care. I'm not here pretending to be something I'm not. I've been here for a long time. I've been about Newport. Y'all know I've been fighting for Newport for a long time, and I'll continue to win, lose, or draw. The fight is worth it. That's it.
Okay. Next question. So all of you have discussed in your various interviews, bringing business to Newport, lowering tax rates. Given the parameters of the mayor's position based on the Newport City Charter, how do you see the mayor being able to work on those issues? And this time we'll start with Rob.
Excellent. Well, I think candidate Earl brought it up earlier, that the mayor needs to be out promoting Newport and out marketing Newport. As someone that pretty much worked on his master's degree in marketing at St. Michael's College after UVM, I have a strong marketing and public speaking and outreach background and have worked incessantly on helping people feel heard, whether depending on whatever the project is or whatever the initiative is. I would put my full effort behind it to make sure that it was as successful as possible. And if I had reservations about it, I would share with the group at that time. I wouldn't wait and say something later on after the work had already started, or leave people stranded when they were depending on them. So my job, would be to market and public outreach and to make sure everybody knew that I was accessible, and whether you saw me on the road or on the street or sitting at a bench or having dinner, please interrupt me, share your concerns, send me an email, because that's how we open those channels of communication, and that'll help bring more people in. So you need somebody that has a positive attitude and that knows what it means to actually go out and put themselves out there, even that's more extroverted than you can imagine, that's trying to always push the voice Newport City forward and bring positive things
30
to
seconds.
the people of Newport and to all the residents of Newport. And it's gonna be a struggle, but at the same time it's that willingness to go forward and to continue working when it's hard that makes the biggest difference.
All right, Carl.
Question again, please.
Yeah. All of you have discussed bringing in your various interviews, bringing business to Newport, lowering the tax rate. Given the parameters of the mayor's position based on the Newport City Charter, how do you see the mayor working on these issues?
Well, certainly to lower the tax rate, we have to have a revenue to offset that. That certainly is bringing revenue in, which would be a business. You've got to go up and entice them. How are they going to know we're here unless we go out and tell them? And that's quite essentially what the mayor's role is, as I've seen it. But and we also have to have good infrastructure to keep them here as well too. Look at that.
Linda.
So my background, to give you a little bit, is I'm a CA, I have an MBA, I have an LLM, which is a law degree in taxation. I am a turnaround specialist, but beyond that, most importantly, you need to go out and you need to speak to successful business people who have been here. You need to speak to the stakeholders. You need to look at which businesses are already tax exempt, where we are tax exempt heavy, where we are not. We need to speak to the council members. I need to look at what documentation, which businesses have already possibly failed. We need to speak to the businesses that are here, see what their competition is, what would be complementary competition for them. We need to look at what social services are here, what social services would be complementary to them, what revenues would actually be complementary to them, and what would be detrimental to them. We have 1,900 people already employed here in Newport. What would be the employment that would be needed here that would be added value? We need to look at some of the plans that we have invested already in. I know if you look at some of these reports, I'm sure there are a lot of piles of reports that you've paid We need to read them. We need to see what you've paid for. What have those reports said? Has anybody analyzed them? You need to speak to the
30
stakeholders.
seconds.
But most importantly, I really think you need to speak to some of your legislators. We have phenomenal senators and House of Representatives sitting right here in the room. They know what's going on up there. They actually know Newport. So we need to speak to them as well and see what their ideas are for business here. But I know you have successful business people here. We need to see what would complement them. As far as the taxes, that's
Time's
kind of
up.
easy.
All right, so you all have touched on it a little bit, but what specifics in your background do you feel are really the most crucial to helping you in the mayor position? We'll start with Carl.
With my background, certainly would be the fact that I'm what I feel real local. I've been here a very long time. I've done everything pretty much my adult life here. I know the flavor, again, I know the voice, I know what people want, I know what we need. I look around and I see much more, again, as mentioned, Main Street, that I see that the people appreciate what they're coming here for. We want them to stay here. It's just a beautiful place. So that's it. I just want to fight Newport, and be a part of a team.
Okay. Linda.
I have over 30 years of business experience. I have been giving back to the state of Vermont for over 13 years. I have been here, and from the day I moved here, I reached out to the then governor and said, how do I get involved in the state of Vermont? And I started to get appointed to one position after the next, and I kept going. I gave it my all to help the people of Vermont. And I learned about Vermont. And I kept learning and learning and learning. And yes, I haven't lived here as long as my fellow colleagues, but I have given back just as long as my fellow colleagues. And I'm not going to stop, whether I'm your mayor or not. And I hope that I am, but I definitely have the drive. And whether or not you vote for me, I'm going to get back to you. So I have the determination, the experience, the education, the willpower, and hopefully you will allow me to show you that I am as strong a resident as they are. Done?
Okay. Rod.
Thank you. So the qualifications that prepare me for this position. So, as I said before, English business background from the University of Vermont, owned my own business for the 15, 16 years, while at the same time being, prepared to be a high school educator. I spent my first 15, 20 years in business, reaching successful limits and heights and things, and I've learned, how to make money, and I learned how it went to the machine. I've employed some very wonderful accountants in my day, and I've used those to help me grow my businesses. But at the end of the day, I always knew that it was about marketing, it was about sales. So if you don't have sales coming in, there's not much to account for. So bringing and adding revenue and adding that work to a city where I know people are suffering, where I know would love if there was more affordable housing, where I know we would love to walk down Main Street and see a lot fewer empty, businesses and business spaces, when most of the owners of the buildings actually aren't even in Newport. So reaching out to them to help to, get them on board with some new projects and do some things to help us, basically initiate growth and to get started with something that I would be working on too. But let's fast forward. So I told you about my daughter.
30 seconds.
I ended up being a single father. And in order to do that, I wanted to be close to my daughter. So I started substitute teaching in Barton and then realized that I had a lot more to give. So I became a public school teacher. After COVID, after all of the stuff went down, I realized, I need to end up and kick in a little more. So every day I work as a middle school English teacher. If that doesn't prepare me to be a good mayor, I don't know what does.
Are you saying you're prepared to take away from your curriculum
No.
development in the school?
Hey,
The children to
Carl,
be mad?
Carl, we can't do directions. All right, so at this point, we're gonna do a 5-minute conclusion for each of you, and then we're gonna open it up for questions from the audience. So, 1 second to reset time. Started Carl last time, so we start with Linda.
Okay. So, as I said, I have been in Vermont. When I first came to Vermont, I reached out to the then governor. Actually, I unpacked, and then I said, okay, now I need to get involved in Vermont. And I called the then governor, and I said, I need to do something in Vermont. And they put me on the Children's Prevention Council, and I said, well, that's not enough. And they said, oh, it is. You're going to be driving to Montpelier. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's 2.5 hours. I can do that. And then I became the chair of their Judiciary Committee, and I got involved. And then I ran for the House seat in my then district, which was Bennington-Rutland. And they said, well, you don't live here long enough. You'll never get elected. And I ran against somebody who was, like you all called, years in the grave, and won that seat. And they elected me again, and I held that seat for 6 years, and then I didn't run again because I moved here. And so I was appointed, as I said, one of the commissioners of the Vermont State Housing Authority. The bottom line is, I truly believe I have the drive, the credentials, the accountability, the will, and the education, but more importantly, the heart to be a really good mayor for you. I really will listen to you. I really will go out of my way to do a good job. I was an English teacher at the middle school level, at the high school level, in the worst neighborhoods in New York. That did not prepare me to be a mayor, okay? That prepared me to teach people how to read, how to understand social sciences. That did not prepare me to be a mayor. It prepared me to help people get a great education. I will listen to you. My business background, working with people, doing all of these other things, understanding how to help people, how to fix businesses is what makes a good mayor. How to deal with the receivership is what's going to help Newport. How to bring in revenues is what's going to help Newport. How to work with the businesses that are here, how to work with people who need jobs, how to fix transportation, how to make it happen, how to deal with the administration. That is what's going to happen. How to work with the council members, how to work with everybody, how to keep people happy, how to make people sure they can eat, how to work with the elderly. That's what's going to happen here. How to make sure people can afford to eat, pay their bills. That's what's going to happen. Not the fact that I taught English. That's a wonderful profession, but that's not what's going to make a good mayor. So I am going to say, listen, let me listen. I don't care if I've lived here for 1 day or 1,000 days or 20 years. It's a whole package, and it involves everybody. So I'm going to ask again, keep an open mind. Breathe. And who really is the best mayor? Everybody here has the right to run. And everybody here comes with great qualifications. And you're all going to cast your vote for whoever you want, because you're going to use your conscience to vote for who you want. And that's what you're supposed to do. But I'm hoping you vote for me. I'm done.
All right. Rod.
Okay, 5 minutes, right? Excellent. So first, I would like to, gently respond to Carl. He asked about my teaching profession and the facts, as we know, teachers, which candidate like Joy just explained. There's a lot of things that go into being a good teacher. And there's a lot of things that make you successful, and there's a lot of skills that have, especially leadership qualities behind it. So, Carl, my curriculum wouldn't suffer as my position of mayor. Because, I'm working on what I'm going to teach my students right now this summer. I spend my vacation times working with my students. I think about my students when I'm not even around them, because that's what it takes to be a successful teacher and to plan your curriculum and the things that you're doing so the kids feel welcome. They feel, comfortable of exploring and becoming their best self. So, no, sir, I do whatever it takes. I have a very, limited lifestyle, and I set my priorities pretty closely. And yes, being the best teacher I can is the goal, and no, it would not suffer given the current restraints of the Vermont Agency of Education. No, I think teachers is a profession that is actually going to be adding a lot more credibility as things move forward. And that being said, to actually move over to the left, No, the facts are, from a legislative standpoint, no, I've never been responsible for making sure that key legislation didn't fail in the last night because the other 99 people that I promised that I would my support to, I didn't turn my back on them. No one's ever called me a turncoat or squirrely or anything to that effect. So no, I have a wonderful benefit knowing that I mean, authentically, I am who I say I am. And the facts are, is I ran in March because I cared about the job. I ran again because it didn't deter me, even though, we saw, what happened during the transition in the 75 days and how unfortunate that circumstance was. But, that didn't deter me because I've been putting myself out there regularly. And it's not just talking about talking to your legislature, it's talking to the people. And it's not just about talking to people with power or the successful business owners, because all business owners know that the market changes. The economy changes. Inflation went up again. So what does that mean? There's a lot of things, ARP funds, so much that goes into being successful, on a regular basis. And that's what that teacher does. One of the best things my superintendent says is a teacher goes out every day and they go out and put their best foot forward, and no matter if they're having a bad day or whatever, they do their best to put the kids first. And they see the kids authentically as people. And that's the way I would see the constituents in Newport City. No matter what's going on with me, you guys have the most important voice, and that's our voice telling us what you need to make this city more livable, to make this city more inhabitable, not just for the locals. Sounds kind of interesting to me. I mean, to say that, only people locally born in Newport can actually have a voice, that's kind of interesting. But at the same time, we're here for everybody. And if you weren't born here and you're still willing to get out there and put yourself out on the limb when you know everybody that you see doesn't necessarily believe that you should probably even have the same rights as they do. You do your best even harder. You work harder to prove yourself. As a black male educator, how many of those do you know, Carl? The facts are, every day, I put myself out there and I expose myself to make everybody feel welcome, everybody feel included. And in my classroom, just like in my position as there, you would know from day one, all are welcome here, and whether it's a little complaint or whether it's a large complaint, my goal is to help you solve this issue with the city council's help and to make sure the municipal workers, everybody feels a part of something moving forward. The
30 seconds.
The three people sitting at this table are at different parts in their careers. That is absolutely clear. But let me ask you this. If you ask yourself 10 years from now, 15 years from now, who's still going to be working and building and establishing things and trying to create growth and prosperity with everybody that he comes in contact with? It's going to be me. And I want to be doing it for the city of Newport. No other city. I'm not going to move all the way to southern Vermont to try to do something else differently in a year's notice. I'm going to do my best every day for Newport City.
And I'm going to give the other candidates a chance to a 30-second rebuttal on that. So there were a couple of things made that are a little personal. So we will start with 30 seconds, and we'll start Carl on this one. Give me 1 second. All right, go ahead, Carl.
Just for clarity, my point was it takes, to be mayor, a lot of time invested into knowing the positioning, learning about developers, businesses and stuff like that. So when I question why would a teacher want to take away from the curriculum that it would set aside with his passion, being you, so I'm going to name people, it'll be you. Why would you want to take away from children to fill in a spot that takes quite more of your time?
Okay,
I
time's
would
up.
dare to say that there will be an unbalance.
Carl, time's up. And Linda, 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Thank you. There's no reason to respond to hearsay, non-factual things. It just shows that a mayor who doesn't understand hearsay shouldn't be mayor.
And 30 seconds out, Rod.
It's the 7 Days Vermont article from 2020, February 7, 2020, 7 Days Vermont. Look it up. You'll hear it. I mean, you'll hear what other, Mitzi and numerous people quoted by 7 Days Vermont said. And I have other questions too if we talk about, the coffee cup receivership. I've heard, not to be hearsay, but, and I'm glad you reported that they're just now starting to release money and funds because that has been a long time coming. And I know that you were appointed for that position, even as a position of auditor. I appreciate when you...
What's up?
It's all great to be here.
All right, so, and Carl, your 5 minutes. Let's reset the clock. Jeez, I think it would be a little easier to do this. All right, Carl.
Simply this, I've been here a long time. I can't say I'm native. When I signed on the dotted line to risk my butt to represent Vermont and here in Newport, I believe I turned into a local. When I use the word local, I'm not talking about I only concentrate on locals. My phrasing is a real local for us, which is appropriate. I bring a lot of worth. I'm Carl P. King. I don't need any letters after my name. That's it, I'm worthy enough. I've been here a long time. Again, I know this community. I know what they want. I know what they're itching for. I know what brings them joy. I'm not here to fluff any feathers. I'm not here to edify myself. I'm here to sell Newport and bring prosperity and bring harmony to the council and the community. And that's it. Do my role as a team member to bring us all together, again, move forward into the future. That's it. That's what I want to concentrate on. I'm retired. So therefore, I can give 100% of my time, which is a lot, to that role, which I would believe here in the future is going to require that much more time, energy, and effort. That shouldn't be taken away from other things. Quite frankly, and I'm being nice, both my opponents sound like very busy people, even before they get to the mayor's office. So I dare to say, are we going to get a 50% mayor? Are we going to get a 25% mayor? Or we give someone who gets 100% to Newport? And that's Carl King. King will bring change, honesty, integrity, and results. Thank you.
All right, and with that, I'm going to open it up for questions, and after a question, each will get 2 minutes to respond to that question, and we'll try to keep moving, check up the order. Anybody have questions? Yep. Introduce your name and where you're from.
Sure. My name is Scott Hammond, here in Newport. We just all recently saw all the devastation south of all of our neighbors during flooding. I just want to know, as mayor, what ideas, what leadership would you show in order to create a risk-averse, a more thoughtful approach to climate change and keeping our municipality and all of our infrastructure safe from the increase in flooding and stuff that all of the climate reports are showing us. So what I do have, what things we push before to help our city in case of disasters in the future.
All right, and so this one will start with Rod.
Okay, thank you. 2 minutes. So some of the first, thank you for the question. Let's see, first of all, in light of all the flooding, I definitely want to commend Representative Wood Page, who's been working hard to make sure that Orleans County gets added to that FEMA report and to be able for individuals to get FEMA assistance. Most of you know we were left off of that declaration with all the flooding and the rain and everything that happened the past 2.5 weeks. So that is and should be a wake-up call for all of us of how important climate change is. And we have a wonderful reusable resource next to us like Magog, and it's Magog's drinking water. So there's things that we should be doing to preserve that, to make sure we could do our best to recycle and reuse our things and limit our carbon footprint. And that needs to be a part of our day-to-day efforts. I mean, also we have our landfill, and we have numerous things that we are working on and contending with. And I think, first of all, we can establish better relationships with those businesses that are like Casella and those places that are in charge of these things, and to make sure they understand, how it impacts us, and whether it's the smell or whether it's so many things that we can all, I think it's time for us to put climate at the forefront of things and to understand the climate struggle is
30
about
seconds.
us. It's actually about our kids and our grandkids. It's time for us to be sensible and realize that, for our kids to have a better life, we might have to forego some things.
Well said. All right, Burl.
As I understood your question, we're a community built on water. So it's not really shocking to us that Mother Nature would dump water in the rivers and the lake will swamp. So we have contingency plans for that. We're built to handle that. Now we get a little bit more than we really want. That addresses our city public works and social infrastructure. We go out and make sure that we build things strong enough to take deluge of water and just doesn't bust out and do minimum repairs later. That's all part of the logistics. That's all figured in. Climate change, we all should be responsible in our own way. As a city, we should promote better ways to do it in our home, to back to recycle. Unfortunately, the dump brings us a whole set of other contingencies we deal here in the city. So going in the future, we're going to need to address that and figure out what we can do those to negate our impact in our environment, in our waterways.
All right.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the question was, what would the mayor do? But in general, right, okay. Okay. Right, okay. So my answer, we're going to start with the mayor cannot undo their self, you know. So the administration, and there needs to be total involvement here. And there needs to be looked at with the plan, there needs to be working with the natural resources committees, there needs to be more than just one isolated path here. This goes far beyond just the city of Newport. This needs to be the state of Vermont. There needs to be a hands-on interaction. This needs to be, there are organizations that go actually outside. There is an organization that I was involved in, which was the National Organization of Legislators that was brought in with the New England legislators, and they were very involved with climate change. And they came to Vermont and participated in working with climate change, and they still are involved. And I think that's key, is don't let go. Don't let go of outside resources. Don't stop. There needs to be whatever plan that Newport is working on, and I'm sure that the council has been
30
involved.
seconds.
I think that you still need to keep your hands involved in that. And there needs to be what's going on with the dump, what's going on with the administration. You can't just say, okay, we're going to carve out, stay in a silo, and we're going to just work in an isolated fashion. And I think whoever gets in there needs to keep their hands tapped in and work with the people and the organizations and that you're involved in and stay as a whole.
All right.
All right.
Rob? Oh,
I'll go
Sorry.
again. Can I have 2 more minutes?
sorry, guys. Any questions? Your name and where you're from?
My name is Claire McIntyre. I'm from Newport State. I haven't been here that long, but just before the pandemic. And since the pandemic started, I have cut my propane volume by 50%. And propane is my only heat. I've cut my water use by more than 50%. I've cut my electricity use by more than 50%. I cut my gasoline use to 39 gallons per year before I gave up my car for the planet. I now use a car to walk to town, a mile or more to where I'm going, and carry the things home. Now, particularly in the last year, I've heard a lot of comments from a number of people about the cost of fuel, the cost of energy, the cost of food, and complaints. Now, I have done it by myself, and you can tell I'm not a 20-year-old. Do any of you, have any of you, any thoughts about how to try to reach some of the people to help them save money and make life easier for themselves? Now, with the money I've saved, it was much more than I ever expected. I never expected to be able to cut my propane use by 50%. But with the money that I've saved, I'm keeping track of that, and I'm reinvesting it. For me, it's a fair amount of money, but for most people, it's a tiny amount, right? But I'm reinvesting that in the businesses, the locally owned businesses that I see doing the best job for the community. So what I'm saving, I'm giving back to, yes, the people in my opinion, the businesses in my opinion that I think are doing the best for the community. But each one of the citizens could do the same thing.
So your question to the candidate is, what are their thoughts to reach out to people to help them save money and invest in the community?
What can we do to make it easier for the people to live in a comfortable manner?
Okay. All right.
with Rod, so we will start with Carl.
Complex question. Certainly, there's a lot of organizations that are out there that helps people formulate plans, financial plans. They'll help alleviate some stress and help develop new ways to save money and where to put it that it's going to be most economical. So I would stress to say go out and well, one of mayor is promote these programs, learn about them, so when people, constituents have questions like that, we can better direct you to services that can get you the basic needs that you talk about. That's my approach to that.
All right. Linda?
Yes. So I think it's really important for us to identify the people. We need to locate who the people are that might have these needs. And you said that you think that maybe they wouldn't have these needs as much as you do. I might tend to disagree. Maybe there are people out there who might have these needs just as much, if not more. So I think maybe there might be some people in Newport who are sitting there who may need help. And I think that's important too. So maybe going to the homes and trying to identify who they are and then seeing what services could be offered. But I think it's very important, especially after COVID, to find out who they are, because a lot of people are isolated, and they were more isolated after COVID. I know that people were left in their homes, didn't reach out, and a lot of loneliness happened, and not just loneliness by, oh gee, I'm afraid to speak out, but loneliness of, I'm fearful of going to the door. And so you have to figure out who was stuck in the house, even with the floods. My big thing was, please reach out to a neighbor. Don't be stuck in the house. So people were afraid to actually go out, open the door,
30
walk.
seconds.
So I think we need to find them and figure out how can you help them and what do they need. Then you can figure out how to provide those services.
Okay. Rod?
First of all, thank you very much for the question and for sharing what you've been doing to reduce your footprint. And what you've done is absolutely commendable. I'm not sure I do it because I am very much, a concern. And to make those cuts is necessary and vital to our future. So let's take a step back, think about, what you presented. The facts are, as the mayor and as a city council and with any kind of initiative where we're working to reduce, reuse, recycle, we remember that, right? There's a lot of those things that need to come back to the forefront, whether it's through education, whether it's through state organizations like NETO and places like that are actively out there working to help people, insulate homes and things like that. We have to make sure that information gets out there. So we have to educate, the constituents to make sure of those resources that are out there. And as, the mayor, I would work hard to make sure that those initiatives are moving forward. But most importantly, I have done a lot of work in the field of equity, and whether it's racial equity or educational equity, but there's one that always seems to slip our minds here in the Northeast Kingdom. That's rural equity. We need to actually start to ask for and get some of the things that our wonderful other cities in the state of Vermont have. And by working on that rural equity, we can open ourselves up to more
30
grants
seconds.
and more types of funding sources that will, increase our inflows and revenues and things like that, but at the same time, give us the opportunity to establish and continue these ongoing projects that are going to help us, reduce. Because I have propane and I have electric as well, and I would much rather use propane heat than electric. So that's where I stand.
All right. Next question?
Okay, wait, is it based on that?
I wanted to just follow up to him.
Okay.
Is that what I did not use any of the programs that are in place. None of them.
Okay. So this woman over here, hand up first, and then we'll come to you next. Jennifer Hopkins.
I have a three-part question. One is, have you read the city charter? Number two, where in the budget would you cut? And where in the budget would you add?
All right. And so this will start with Linda.
So was the first question, have you what?
Have you read the city charter?
Yes. Okay.
So one is, have you read the city charter? Two, where in the budget would you cut? And three, where in the budget would you add?
So as far as where in the budget I would cut, I'm going to say that I am not actually open to say what I would cut in the budget at this point in time, because it's a question that, without discussing it with the council and actually analyzing it, it would be premature and actually an unqualified answer. And I don't think that I really couldn't give a qualified answer on where I would cut in the budget right now. I can say I would like to break it down, look at the audit, go into the water. I mean, I've looked at the audit, but I haven't looked at the 63-page notes with all of those, and tied it to the budget and said, okay, maybe these taxes could be a little lower and why. But to actually give an unqualified answer, I would say that's not really something I would answer right here off the cuff.
And the third part was where in the budget?
And so I would say the same thing on an answer. Now, if I had a spreadsheet and I was looking at notes, I can give you your one answer, oh, I cut taxes, or oh, I cut this, or oh, I cut that. Not going to get that because it'd be an unqualified answer. So I really could give you that. And I apologize that it's not the answer you might want, but it's just an unqualified answer, so I could give it to you.
All right. Rob?
Well, let's see, the first time that I read the charter was at the beginning of the year, actually over my holiday break around, December 28th or so, is I read the charter. I wanted to make sure I knew what I was looking at when I was putting my name on the ballot to run for mayor. I also, reread the charter after, unfortunately, Mayor Barnes resigned, because that is when I discovered that a lot of different cities in the state of Vermont have different charters. Some cities even have like a deputy mayor in place for things like that, and they have provisions that would happen, if the, mayor can't fulfill their term. So that's the second time I've reread it, and I've read it to know instinctually like what the position of mayor is, so not to overstep my roles or anything like that. And that has added my overall breadth of, my understanding of the state of Vermont and local politics. So where would I cut revenue? I agree with candidate Linda Joy. I don't see, well, not probably for the same reasons, but I don't see anything that needs to technically be cut right now. And to add part of where would I increase? I think one of the things that I've heard, because I've reviewed all the city council meetings, minutes, and attend most of them virtually, and have been there a couple times, read transcripts and things like that. Me personally, I think the first thing that I would want to
30 seconds.
work on and alleviate is I know that we have a line of credit in place. It's usually in place for us to get through a shortfall while we're waiting on taxes to come in. So the first thing I would really want to do from a very optimistic generating standpoint is figure out what we'd have to do so we wouldn't have to borrow against the line of credit every year. And that we could figure out a way. And then you would need key performance indicators to see the percentages of raises and decline over the years of our expense and make it in line with the budget.
And Carl, same question. Have you read the city charter?
Yes, I've read the city charter. I intend on reading it again, and that's a document that needs to be reread over and over and over. Each stage of development you make, each goal you develop and make, you always want to stay on top of that as your reference. Make sure you're, such a sailor's term, that you're sailing by a true star, and guide it the right way. Every decision should be made based upon that in the best interest of Newport. And of course, with my other opponents, that question certainly, no one should answer that question without having facts and figures in front of that. That would be, I would assume, a loaded question, so you would answer that. Smart guys. That's it.
Okay. Next question. Yes.
Hi, my name is Lisa Mrs. Cannon. I go by Raven. I'm actually not 20 years old. I'm almost 40. And I just wanted to hear a lot of people complain. I have 2 children, a 15-year-old and a 9-year-old. And I moved here 6 months ago from Utah out of an act of desperation because of how that was going there. My mother met my father in September in Mission, Brazil. And she came to the country when she was 18 years old, me at 19, and my whole life I had felt like I didn't know. Because when I hear xenophobic comments and I hear the word illegals, and when I hear real locals, I feel like I don't belong. And when I shared Saturday's article to report Vermont Host discussion with him, 16 minutes it was removed, and this was what I said. As a young business owner in Newport with a spouse and family with full-age children, I have some concerns about Linda Sullivan's run for mayor. It's removed after 16 months. After hearing about how Latinos clean up the muck and mold the air of escaping gang violence, by the way, we're cleaning muck up for $15 an hour and we're turning away from teachers at local school. So I would like to know about how the candidates will help us feel like our voices matter, because it's been very hard. We graduated in the mid-2000s. He graduated in 2008. So we rented most of our marriage, struggled, moved all over the country, renting. And we feel very lucky as our generation to be able to get into a home. And so I just want to know how we're going to make sure that people from diverse backgrounds are going to feel heard.
Okay, so the question to the candidates is what they feel they could do to help make all voices heard.
Yes.
And in this, we will start with Rod.
Thank you very much for sharing. I definitely understand where you're coming from, and I know what it means and what it feels like to be an outsider, even after being in the state of Vermont for 31 years. I know at different times and different places that, you can still feel like an outsider. And that's kind of why I decided to, commit to my teaching career and to stay, as a middle school English teacher and go into my 11th year at Barton Academy in graded school, because I know how important it is for, everyone to be able to express themselves and to feel comfortable in their own skin and to feel a safe, warm, and welcome environment. So that's kind of why I stayed there, even with turnover of teachers and other educators leaving and things like that. I knew whether I was just a substitute teacher at the beginning or if I could come into a full-time job, it would be important for my students, for the people that I see every day, to have have a stable voice, and they know they're always welcome in Mr. Owens' classroom. I'm happy to know that some of these kids I've seen, since they were kindergartners, and now the 8th grade going on to high school, I've spent 8 years with me, and I'm one of the primary people of color that they actually know in this wonderful era that we live in. So working to maintain that inclusivity and making sure that everybody feels welcome and important. And a lot of this,
30 seconds.
Come together isn't necessarily happening and isn't supposed to happen at the city council meetings. It's actually supposed to happen in community forums. It's actually supposed to happen at the organizations and agencies that we have, whether it's the clinics, and you always need to have that time, even sometimes if it's over Zoom, for people to feel comfortable, where they feel like their voice heard, and you have to make space, and you have to meet people where they are. So that's what I do, and they always know, no matter what happens, the voice is most important to me.
Time is up. Carl.
I really empathize, and I want to validate you. It's tough to come into forum like this and speak from your heart about something very sensitive and personal. So thank you very much for sharing that. As a man, but as a person, I believe in everybody. I believe everybody deserves a chance. I don't believe there should be. I don't like to use the word class. I just like to use the word demographics and include everybody. Because once you start doing that, again, you take your eyes and you unjustifiably put someone ahead or below. I want to be Carl King the man. I don't want to be above you. I want to be below you. I want to be right there beside you and grow with you and move forward. And that's what I would offer, certainly as a mayor, but as a citizen, but that atmosphere at the council. Certainly, we need to deal with issues and be sensitive, and inclusivity is part of that. So I would 100% support that. Thank you.
All right, and Linda.
So it's really sad that in politics things get ugly. And as human beings, I hope that you'll come forward and speak, especially to me. I would welcome being able to speak to you as an individual, and I would open my heart to speak to everybody individually. And before you go, I would love to speak with you. And as the mayor, I would speak to everybody. Everybody should be treated equally. Nobody should be afraid to speak to anybody individually. Politics is what it is. People are going to defend whoever they want, be angry with whoever they want, try to push their candidate forward, and that's sad. And it shouldn't be that way, where it gets to the point where a human being is harmed. And so you as an individual have every right to be who you are. And coming here as a new person, be who you are. Welcome and go for it. And just be happy and just be happy. Just vote for everything you want,
30
because you have the
seconds.
right. And you have the right to be here. And I know that you're like, I could just see that you're kind of not believing it. Yeah, that's what you need to want it. And everybody has the right to want it. And what I'm saying is everybody has the right to want to talk to somebody, and nobody should feel they can't speak to somebody. And I want to speak to everybody. I just don't want anyone to feel they can't.
All right. Any other questions? With the hat. Yeah.
Jay Walsh, I'm from Newport, president. Should stand up so quick. Rod, just to correct something that you mentioned, that you read the city charter. It's clear within the city charter that the mayor has a vote on every matter. They also have a vote, so review that vote, see that it's not just a tiebreak vote. What I'd like to pose to you is we have a lot of really well-established businesses here. And we're coming into a time when we're changing our city manager. This is the most important position in the city outside the council. It's a fully paid position, over $100,000, and they are the manager of the city. It's a very important position to choose as reviewing candidates. There's several towns around Vermont and Hampshire in the last 3 years, Waterbury, Charlotte, Hampshire, Winooski, and South Burlington, all chose to have advisory committees. Their city councils chose to have advisory committees to assist them in the selection of their city manager when they were looking to appoint a new city manager or hire a new city manager. They involved businesses in the community, they involved community members in doing that. We have you're talking about bringing new business to town. Well, I'd also like to remind you that we don't have any housing. We have no apartments. I'm looking to place people for the last 4 months. There is no. You're not bringing business here who doesn't have a place for their employees to land. We have a lot of successful businesses here that if we were to lose any of them, it would be devastating. If we were to lose Pool and Grain, this town would collapse. If we were to lose Columbia Forest Products, it would collapse. We need to involve them and other members in the community in choosing the city manager. It is the most important role that we're going to have over the next 10 years, is what that city manager can accomplish. If you're not aware of it, 50% of the property on Main Street is tax exempt. Our tax exempt status for property in the city is 25%. This is more than double of what a healthy city can survive in. We can't get grants to get ourselves out of it. We can't put more subsidized housing in to get ourselves out of it. We need the large employers here to prosper.
What is your question to the?
So I'd like to know if you as mayor, would you support the appointment of an advisory committee in the selection process for the next city manager?
All right. So we will start with Carl.
For right now, because this is new to me, I would abstain from answering that because I'm not sure how that works, how other towns have been successful or unsuccessful using that method. I don't have enough information on how that part works to make an educated answer on it. I believe the town should pay attention to who are candidates, but certainly it is for the best interest of the town to make sure that our businesses are happy, that our constituents are happy, our workforce are happy. That is a large role of being successful. But as to comment as yes or no, I would like to learn more how that process is, and before I'd answer that. I don't agree or not agree. I can see wisdom in that, but I can't see the whole story, the whole picture to answer on that. So I will get back to you personally once I understand it. We can talk more, so I could understand that
30
more.
seconds.
But that's it.
Okay. No.
With the appropriate confidentiality rules in place, I think advisory boards or advisory councils in areas such as that are really important. I think that advisory councils of select members of the community can be extremely helpful. And just like you would use headhunters for input, I think as long as you do have the appropriate confidentiality in place and everybody signs those appropriate agreements, because when you're hiring people, that's very important. And if the council goes through that appropriate process with the legalities in place, I think that it can be extremely helpful for vetting people who you're going to be bringing in. And I think that could be a very helpful instrument and tool.
Okay. And Rob?
Okay, first of all, thank you very much, Mr. Walsh, for the correction. I will definitely review that, especially since the last time I was having it in a conversation, having this discussion in the conversation, it was the city council president. So he and I might both need to, make sure we have our facts straight on the voting statutes. That being said, I would absolutely be in favor of an advisory committee. It was in what the city council wanted. I think, 5 city council people, including the mayor, probably should have, and make sure we have other voices at the table, like those business owners that you're talking about. Anybody that would like to, and it's not necessarily the confidentiality portion of the discussing an actual individual with the position, as much as saying, this is what we're looking for in our city manager. And I definitely know exactly what you're talking about as far as last 4 months, because, our past transition probably, most people would say, didn't go that well. And that's where we're in a position of having an interim person. And I think there are ways that maybe, the actual interviews probably shouldn't happen in the middle of city council meetings where we have to go to private session. So a vested interest, making sure the same way, you hire a superintendent of a school district or somebody that is vital, crucial. You get as many people that have concerns and their voices are heard, and we make sure that during the interview process and the selection process that we have those questions asked and we have those questions answered
30 seconds.
to the extent that it's necessary for us to take, the best informed decision that we can. I've hired people, I have asked to be hired by people before, so I know how difficult it is to be in that position where you're selling yourself, but at the same time, we need to make sure that that city manager has a growth mindset and is ready to do, some wonderful and exciting things, and let them do their job and trust the person that we hire.
All right. Any other questions?
I just want to follow up on one thing, that politics was brought up, and I think it's a...
Your name and where you're from.
My name is Ron Horton. I'm for state senate candidate, and I live in Jay. However, as goes Newport, so goes the NEK, as far as I'm concerned. It's the times. I don't believe the position of mayor should be political. However, in my views, I've worked with Rod on the Orleans County Democratic Committee before he was in there as chair and after. I see that the political values tend to lead to the quality of your decision making. So my question is, how do you feel your own personal political values would weigh in on your position as mayor?
So we started Coral, so this time we will start Linda.
So I do not believe that the mayor should be a political position, because you're doing a local government and you're dealing with more of the financial and the business revenues. I do think you're voting for bill, you're voting for policy. I think what you're dealing with right now is how to keep a city alive, thriving, and I think that your policy making is going up towards Montpelier. So how do your own values come in? If you're asking, well, if somebody is pushing forward an agenda that has a political position, what is that going to be? Should we shut down Newport for a political agenda? Well, the council's going to come in. What is the political agenda that is being shut down for? What is the financial position going to be? Will Newport lose X amount of revenues that will bankrupt the city because somebody wants to do a political position? Well, I would calculate it first and see if it's worth bankrupting the city. So I really think that the political agenda is not worth the bankrupting of the city. So I think we really are not looking at a political agenda. I think that that's up in Montpelier. Thank you.
Rod.
Thank you very much for the question. I mean, first, I think it's important to, know who you are as an individual, whether you're a citizen, whether you're a resident, whether you're a potential candidate, or whether you're, the average person. You want to, the better you understand yourself, the better you're able to understand and interact with other people. So that's why I'm proud to say, that where I lean in my meetings, and I'm also proud to say that, you can also use terms like pragmatic, when you're talking about me. You can use terms like moderate, and you can use terms like centrist. I'm going to do my best to get everybody's voice heard. That is what I wake up trying to do, and it's what I go to sleep trying to do. So my goal is always going to be inclusivity, and because I believe that the more voices that you have in a discussion, the better decision you're going to reach. So I'm not going to exclude somebody because they're not local. I'm not going to purposely say we're going to kick it up the street to legislature and hope that legislature saves us. No, I'm going to look at the people that I see every day in the city, and they're going to know that I'm working hard for them because I would want them to do the same thing for me.
Okay. And Carl.
You're right. The mayor should be straight down the line for everybody. Because once you take prize, as I put off the prize to deal with party matters such as you alluded to, you're really not paying attention to city matters. And then it becomes potentially an agenda-driven matter. I do believe, though, that potentially a party affiliation may help bring help to the city, being a conduit to the state, being whichever side of the party. I'm Republican for transparency, but that has no bearing on my leadership ability or my focus to put Newport first and foremost in my life. The rest is just a hobby for me. Newport is a business and it's my life. Yeah, that's it. There's no more to that. It shouldn't be used, but perhaps a tool to help bring help, not the tool to get you in a position.
All right.
Any other questions? Striped shirt.
Gary Coster from Newport City. I go to the radio family here in Newport. It's a great place. Possibly it's got a beautiful lake, it's a beautiful city. We've been in Newport since the early 90s and seen a lot of changes in this city. Some real good, some not so good. So I'm wondering, what kind of specific ideas do you guys have to put forth to the council? Because you're going to be able to work alone. You all have to work with this council that we have. From what I've read in the paper and seen on some of these televised city meetings, you got an uphill battle. You're going to go on an uphill for quite a while to get this thing rolling and to get things going. So just on a few specific issues, and I know you the list could go on and on and on. You could spend hours coming up with things that you need to change, and things you need to deal with, and things that need to be fixed. But just a few issues that Newport's dealing with for a long time now are housing, drug and alcohol issues, transitional housing out of the prison, which is one of the biggest employers we have in the area, in the state, for that matter. One of the biggest employers that provides more jobs and more income to this area than most of the other employers in this area. Not to say that the other employers aren't just as important, but the people get out of prison, some of them will stay here. Some of them go into housing that's not on the tax rolls, and they're not even, a lot of them don't even pay their own rent, because they can't. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be here, I'm just saying transitional housing is taking up a lot of housing. So that's kind of an issue. We need housing for, people that need jobs, and that can provide jobs for. There's more jobs in this area. I'm hearing employers say, I put out a job advertisement for 90 days, I got 0 applicants. 0 for a job in this area. There's something wrong with that picture. But then you walk up down Main Street all day long, or drive up and down Main Street, some people walking around, a lot of young people, a lot of people that seem to have a free time on their hands. So what can you do, and what specifics, if any, you have to address like coal in Newport, which is a big issue and a big sore spot in a lot of people's minds, and we all know what's going on with that, and we know we can't do anything with it right now because of the receivership and all that stuff. But eventually we need to put something in there that's going to be on tax rolls. So how do we put businesses in Newport that are on the tax rolls and are contributing to the city's income and city revenues, because we all know that's how the city gets its money, is taxes. So if we continue to draw businesses in and put them in places where the building comes off the tax rolls, that's kind of a negative. And it might bring in a few jobs, but is it really moving us forward by taking off the tax maps?
So, I kind of heard two questions, so let me see if I have these right. What ideas do you have that you could bring to city council? And how do we bring more business to the area that are on tax rolls?
Exactly. What specific ideas do you guys have to take to the city council and say, this is kind of what we need, this is the direction we need to move in, and how can we get there? And what skills do you have that are going to help you work with this city council specifically that seems to be going to be an uphill battle for any one of you, whoever gets it? Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to just restate that. So what ideas do you have that you can bring to this city council to maybe bring more business to the area that are on tax rolls? And what skills do you have to work with this council? It seems to be more complicated. All right, so with that said, we started with Linda last, so Rod.
Wow, thank you. That's a very good question. That's a great question. I appreciate the question. I definitely agree with you on a lot of levels, and I would offer that Newport City has some wonderful, wonderful things going on for it. Absolutely, I absolutely agree. And the first thing I think we would do is we would try to accentuate those positives. Bless you. We would accentuate those positives and do our best to build off those successes. I know we have a strong rec department. I know different people come from all over to be a part of our, events. Wednesdays on the waterfront's a big, so recreation and things like that are huge. And I think there's ways that we can build upon those. So I'm definitely someone that would accentuate the positives and highlight those as key features and key factors in our city, and then figure out meet with those people, talk to them, the heads of those departments in our city government, and ask them what they're doing that's successful, why they feel that that's going on, whether it's the bandstand, renovate the bandstand in Gardner Park, the initiatives and things like that are working forward. So to move into your second part of that question, my skills is the marketing background. So whatever I need to do to be the voice or the focal point of the city council, making sure I think they would respect me as a leader, and I think they would respect that I have everybody's best interest, and I would not hesitate to disagree with them, respectfully, cordially, and be willing to, stand my ground to share my point of view that's still in the light of what the public's asking. Yes, we all have to work together, whether it's leadership, development conferences, things like that. And I think to the second part of your questions, and it gets to Mr. Walsh a little bit.
Time's up.
You have to incentivize businesses to figure out these things. We have to come up with some sort of incentive structure that helps businesses stay here and helps, some of our subsidized housing
Time's
be
up.
more affordable. Yeah.
All right, Carl.
So, within the realms of the mayor and of course the permissions with the city council, you would essentially go out in court. You would want to go and identify businesses that would line up with your community, its needs, its workforce. Don't want to bring some businesses are all technical unless you have that workforce available. So you certainly would want to have your logistics in order for them to come, to make sure it makes sense. I'd like to introduce what I call the Sister City Program, where we would attach to another city, let's say Newport, Rhode Island, for example. Very wealthy community. How about some of those who, small state, you can't really do much. A lot of people like to expand. Businesses, developers get a lot of money. If we court them, tell them we're here, they're not going to know unless we tell them. And then we bring them up and entice them up. And it's just, you don't entice them and leave them to be. You want to keep them here, keep them happy. A happy community member, happy business member, a happy taxpayer in that regard. But we would want to go and court them. Let them know we're here, and that's it. Won't know until we're here. Let them know that what we have available. And they can bring their wealth, certainly knowledge, possibly expand their businesses here, where they would be able to do so much there. And we can also keep the purity of our environment and provide a hideaway, getaway, rec environment. So again, we want to attach someone and be a conduit. We want to have an avenue for them to get. We don't attach to everybody. We'd be overloaded. Let's try this program, see what that does, and see what worth it brings.
All right, Linda.
So I've read the receiver's reports, the 9 reports that he's published regarding the whole, to see what assets are there, what authorities he has to sell, and what confidentiality report and bids have been out there so far. So I would discuss those with the council to see how that could be moved going forward. That would be number one, and my hopes would be that there could be some type of mixed-use negotiations to go forward there, to bring in some revenues, bring in some infrastructure, so that when there are negotiations, something viable could happen there, and not just some movement of properties to be placed there that could possibly deter revenue. That would be one area. Okay, and I know it's an eyesore, it's in our face, and once it's in your face, you don't want to hear anything. But there are options. So that would be number one, and I'm going to talk really fast before she tells me I have to be. Okay, and so number two, we have a beautiful lake that pushes tourism. We don't want just, okay, here's tourism in July. So with the council, we have to figure out how do we work with current businesses, how do we get tourism to get more people walking down Main Street, even if it's in the snow, okay, and keep them here all year long, because Vermont is tourism. That's what we have going down the state of Vermont all year long. So we have to use that. And we have
30
to
seconds.
figure out how to do that, okay? And so we have to use that. We have to figure out what types of business will come in here. We need more restaurants, but we need complementary restaurants. We need not restaurants that will throw the businesses out. We need ones that will play off, because healthy competition is important. We need to figure out what types of businesses can we get in here to bring not just 1,900 people employed here, but could we bring in to have more people here that we can then have housing that will give us housing for the people who are transitioning here. I have to, but we'll talk more.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
My name is Stuart. I was a board member, but I moved away for 45 years.
Gary, what's your last name again?
Lucas.
I agree with the last, Mr. Walsh, the gentleman who's talking. What models do you see as things that have succeeded in rebuilding a city that has, I don't want to say deteriorated, but has declined over the last 2 decades? And I've seen some in the Newport area, whether it's Harvard, St. Albany, and a few others. Do you see those as models that are good? I mean, you've been here a while. You should know about models that succeeded, what haven't succeeded. What do you think is a good model for Newport?
So restating the question, you think is based on other cities in the state of Denver, what do you see as a good model to follow to move Newport forward?
Exactly.
All right, and started. So Carl, we'll kick it off with you.
While I was in the military, I was afforded the opportunity to travel outside of the box, outside of Vermont. So I got to see a lot of models that had worked and had not been successful cities. Your question is more specific here in Vermont? All right. So Newport, what successful model have happened here?
No, models that have happened through the northern part of Vermont, whether it's Roderick, Morrisville, St. Albans, but it's very successful.
Look at Stowe, being such a small little community, thriving. There's people walking up and down that street all day. What are they doing? Why are we not looking at that? A few years ago, I heard, I believe, former manager Lee Dogan referencing that she was pulling a model from, I believe, Rutland. A lot of C stuff was pulled Rutland's model. I don't understand where the success of Rutland was compared to Newport, brought that wealth of knowledge to us here. But I would say Stowe, very successful. Again, because they have the shops, they have beauty, we have the water in addition. So that's a successful model. Places where people want to go and interact and fellowship and things to see, touch, tangibilities.
Okay, all set? Great, Linda.
So I would go with the smart cities. I would go with that type of a model. Speaking of Rutland, as the Bennington Rutland former representative, okay, so I would go with the smart values. I would go with smart cities, the soft values. We're not going to bring hardcore manufacturing back to Vermont, okay? It's gone, okay? We're not going to bring the hardcore tech anymore, and we need to stay away from the telemarketers. The SEC is going to come and visit us, so we need to stay away from that, okay? We don't want to bring in the SEC, we don't want to bring in the FBI, we don't need to do that. We need to come in with the value of the people. We need to come in with revenue that's generated from making Newport smart, okay? What's going to happen there? Retail, smart retail, soft retail, common workplace. How do we provide people that can pick up the phone, use common centers to work where the costs are low? We have to go back to that. Low overhead. We need low overhead. You have somebody who wants to be a marketer, they cannot afford.
30 seconds.
They cannot afford to go out and say, I'm going to invest for 5 years because I get something on the Secretary of State and now I'm going to market. It doesn't work like that. It takes 5 to 10 years to develop a business. So we need lots of common workspace for small business entrepreneurs. But we really need smart businesses. And there's a model for smart business. And that's what I think we need here.
Okay. Rod.
I am so glad I get a second to add on to my answer from before.
Did I start with you?
No, it just, you didn't tell me I had 30 seconds left. Just make sure you tell me that. So to add, to finish what I was saying before, and it tied all together, while my daughter was at Region Union High School, and I was substitute teaching at Barton Academy in grade school, I also, had opportunities to work places like the North Country Career Center. I realized when I was about 40 years old that I didn't have that many vocational skills. So I took some time and I took intro to residential wiring. I took building contracting. I took grant writing, actually, at the North Country Career Center. And I met a lot of local people, and I saw a lot of different avenues to get involved. It was a nice program, for high school students to be potential employers. The Vermont Department of Labor has wonderful resources that local cities and local businesses, tell when they have job openings. So that's a resource. Being in Vermont for 31 years, as a business student in the University of Vermont and St. Michael's College, I absolutely understand what it takes and the models that we're talking about. First of all, I think that one of the coolest things Newport is we're part of the Newport Downtown Development District. There's like 12 of those in the state, and those cities that are, those cities that have like a Newport downtown development district, are doing well. One thing that I've utilized, and we utilize it in, with the Montgomery Boardwalk building, and Joy was just referring to it, like incubator space, where you don't have high overhead, you have the ability to move in, have an office space, and work as you grow your business, or while you try to find angel investor, while you try to get a SBA loan or something like that. And we also have the micro loan business programs. We have micro business development. So there's a lot of models out there where we can utilize our youth and build toward ways for the whole community to thrive.
Any other questions? Well, thank you folks for, yes.
I just, it was a little bit, not disturbing to me, but concerning a little bit when my wife just told me about this yesterday, and we decided to come to this, and I really appreciate you guys being here, and I really appreciate you guys putting on this forum, so that we can meet you guys and listen and hear you. But I just wish that there was so many more people here. Now, one thing that's working against you is that it's got planned the same night as Waterfront Wednesday. I mean, that seems like a major hiccup to me.
I will say that was on us, but it was had a lot to do with the flooding. Some of our original plans had to cancel due to just all the flooding. So that's what ended up happening this one. But yes, that was a thought.
Planning is a good thing.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here for. We're planning our future. We're planning towards the future. So it would be good to see the 200 people here rather than over there, 25 over there for a couple hours. Just my opinion. But I do appreciate this forum and being able to be here and see the process and someone get involved and just hear your guys' ideas. It's been great.
Well, I personally want to say thank you to everybody who showed up, showed civic responsibility, that this is more important right now than a couple hours of music. This is going to change our lives. This is going to affect our lives, and this is going to be our future and our children's future. So it's a little disheartening for me not to see this room full, being in the middle of things going on in the city all at once. But this should have been priority. But I thank you all for choosing to come out.
Thank everybody for coming out tonight for sure. We definitely hope to do more things like this too as time goes on. And I think a couple of people mentioned community forums, and that might be a really good avenue for the paper to get involved and maybe just have community forums. So if anybody is interested in that, I would love to talk to some people about that, because I think that might be something that we, the council can't necessarily always do, but we as a community can. So thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.